This small coin might be worth more than you think. Most people don't pay attention to nickels. They mix them with change, spend them instantly, or forget about them completely. But today on Change Your Life, we're exposing something hidden in plain sight, the Jefferson nickels that collectors quietly look for, even while most people overlook them every day. In this video, we're breaking down the top 3 Jefferson nickels you should know about. 2001 Jefferson Nickel, D. Denver. 1992 Jefferson Nickel, D. Denver. 1995 Jefferson Nickel, D. Denver. These coins are made from copper-nickel composition and feature the famous Monticello reverse design, representing the home of Thomas Jefferson. At first glance, they look completely normal, worn, dirty, and heavily circulated coins from everyday change. But here's the interesting part. Certain mint errors, rare variations, and high-grade conditions can turn these ordinary nickels into coins that collectors are willing to pay serious money for. And the biggest surprise? Most of these valuable details are so small, people don't even notice them. So before you spend your next nickel, pause for a second, because one of these could already be in your pocket. Let's start with coin number 1. Stop. Don't rush past this coin. Because what looks ordinary in your hand is exactly the kind of thing most people never truly see. This is the 2001 Jefferson Nickel from the United States of America. A standard circulation coin. Struck at the Denver Mint and marked with a small D that blends so easily into the design that most people never even register it. It was never made to be special. It was made to move. Through cash registers. Through vending machines. Through gas stations. Through millions of everyday transactions that no one remembers. And that is how something becomes invisible, not by disappearing, but by being everywhere. It carries the copper-nickel composition used in modern U.S. nickels. A durable alloy designed for one purpose: survival in constant circulation. Not beauty. Not rarity. Not prestige. Just endurance. And on the reverse, you see Monticello, the historic estate of Thomas Jefferson. A building engraved so many times across decades that it has become part of visual memory, but not active attention. People recognize it instantly, and then stop looking. Now here is where the real shift begins. Because recognition is not the same as observation. The brain sees something familiar and assumes it already understands it. And once that assumption is made, curiosity shuts down. That is why coins like this survive for decades without being truly examined. Now hold it properly. Turn it slowly in your hand. At first glance, it feels completely ordinary. Same size. Same shape. Same dull metallic tone. Nothing about it demands attention. But that is exactly how the most overlooked details hide. Because this coin is not a single object. It is a product of industrial repetition. Millions of identical pieces are produced in high-speed minting systems. Each strike happening in fractions of a second. Each coin pushed through the same mechanical process. Each one leaving the mint as part of an enormous circulation network. And when something is produced at that scale, perfection stops existing. Now tilt it under light. Watch carefully. Some parts reflect more than others. Some areas appear darker. Some sections look slightly smoother where time has worn them down. These differences are subtle. They are not dramatic. They are not designed to be noticed quickly. But they are there. Every mark on this surface has a reason. Tiny scratches from years of handling. Soft fading from constant friction. Edge wear caused by being stacked, dropped, and moved endlessly. Nothing about this coin is untouched. And nothing about it is meaningless. Now look at Monticello again. The structure is familiar. Balanced. Stable. But in mass production, even the most stable design is not perfectly identical across every strike. Die pressure changes over time. Tools wear down. Metal flows differently under repeated strikes. Small variations appear naturally during production cycles. These variations are not obvious flaws. They are silent differences inside repetition. And this is where most people miss everything. They think value only exists in rare coins. Special years. Obvious errors. Famous mint marks. But the truth is simpler. The first step is always attention. Because if you never look closely, you never see anything at all. Now let's be honest. This 2001 Jefferson Nickel is not a rare coin. It is not a hidden treasure. It is not $1 million discovery waiting in your pocket. Most of these coins remain worth exactly their face value. That is reality. But reality is not the only thing happening here. Because what actually changes is perception. When you start observing something ordinary with patience, something subtle happens in your mind. You stop assuming sameness. You start noticing differences. You begin questioning what you previously ignored. And once that shift happens, it doesn't stay limited to coins. It starts appearing everywhere. In objects. In details. In patterns you never cared about before. So now this nickel is no longer just something to spend. It becomes something you actually notice. Something you turn under light for a moment longer. Something you examine instead of ignoring. Not because it became rare. But because for the first time, you became aware enough to see it properly. Stop. Don't move past this coin too fast. Because what you're looking at right now is the kind of thing that passes through human hands thousands of times, without ever being truly seen. This is the second coin in our series, the 1992 Jefferson Nickel from the United States of America. Struck at the Denver Mint and marked with a small d that blends so easily into the design that most people don't even register its existence. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. And for almost everyone, it is treated as ordinary. A small piece of metal used for small transactions. Nothing more. Nothing less. But that is exactly how important details disappear. This coin is part of a massive production system built on repetition. Millions upon millions of identical nickels are struck using high-speed minting presses. One after another. Hour after hour. Day after day. The goal is not uniqueness. The goal is uniformity. But in any system that produces things at this scale, perfect uniformity is impossible. And that's where reality becomes interesting. On the reverse side sits Monticello, the historic estate of Thomas Jefferson. A design that has been used across decades of Jefferson nickels. So repeated, so familiar, that it has become invisible to most people. The brain sees it instantly, and then immediately stops paying attention. That is how familiarity erases observation. Now slow down. Actually hold the coin. Turn it under light. At first, it still looks like nothing special. Same round shape. Same metallic tone. Same familiar design. But as you begin to observe it longer, your perception starts to shift slightly. Not dramatically. Not suddenly. But slowly. Tiny surface marks become visible. Faint scratches from years of circulation. Soft dull areas where the original mint shine has faded. Slight wear on raised details caused by constant handling. None of this is unusual. But all of it is real. Every mark tells a silent story. A transaction in a store. A coin dropped into a machine. A hand passing it forward without thinking. A moment that was forgotten instantly. This coin has lived through millions of those moments. And it carries all of them, without saying a word. Now look again at Monticello. It appears simple and stable at first glance. But in large-scale minting, nothing stays perfectly identical over time. Dies wear down gradually. Metal flow reacts differently under pressure. Small shifts occur between early strikes and later strikes. These are not dramatic errors. They are microscopic differences created by repetition itself. And repetition is what gives mass-produced objects their hidden variation. Here's something important most people never realize. A coin is not a single moment. It is a long chain of moments compressed into metal. Each strike adds pressure. Each press adds detail. Each cycle leaves behind a slight variation. And over time, those variations stack together. Not into something obvious, but into something subtle. Now let's be clear. This 1992 Jefferson Nickel is not a rare coin. It is not a hidden treasure. It is not worth millions. It is not going to change anyone's financial situation. Most examples are still worth face value. That is reality. But reality is not the only thing this coin reveals. Because the real shift happens somewhere else. It happens in how you start seeing things. Once you begin observing something ordinary like this in detail, you stop treating everything else as identical. You begin noticing small differences. You start questioning what you used to ignore. You slow down your attention without even realizing it. And that change is lasting. So now this nickel is no longer just something to spend. It becomes something you actually look at. Something you turn under light for a moment longer than usual. Something you observe instead of dismissing. Not because it became rare, but because for the first time, you did. Stop for a second. Because what you're about to see is something most people ignore every single day without even thinking twice. A simple nickel. A small 5-cent coin. Passed through thousands of hands. Dropped in pockets, jars, counters, vending machines, and forgotten instantly. But this is not just any coin. This is the Jefferson Nickel of the United States of America, dated 1995, carrying the P Mint mark from the Philadelphia Mint. At first glance, nothing feels special. It looks normal. Ordinary. Even boring. But that's exactly how most valuable stories begin in the world of coins. The Jefferson Nickel has a long and important history in American coinage. It was first introduced in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel. The design features Thomas Jefferson on the front, one of America's founding figures, and on the reverse side, his historic home Monticello. This design has remained for decades, making it one of the most recognizable coins in U.S. circulation. Now focus on this 1995 version. It is made from a copper-nickel composition, meaning a mix of copper and nickel layered together. This was standard for modern U.S. nickels after silver was removed from small coinage. Millions of these coins were produced in 1995. So at first, it sounds completely common. But here's where people get confused. Not every coin becomes valuable just because of its year. And not every worn coin becomes worthless just because it looks old. Value in coins does not come from age alone. It comes from condition, rarity, and collector demand. This 1995 P. Jefferson Nickel, especially in dirty, heavily circulated condition, is actually what collectors call entry-level coinage. That means it is still part of normal circulation, still easy to find, still commonly used. You might already have one in your pocket right now. But in the collector world, even common coins have meaning. Because collectors don't only chase rare million-dollar pieces. They build complete sets. They search for mint marks. They compare strikes. They study condition differences under magnification. And that's where awareness becomes powerful. A coin like this may not instantly change your financial life. But it teaches something important. That value is not always visible at first sight. The Monticello building on the reverse side is not just decoration. It represents history, architecture, and the legacy of Thomas Jefferson. Every line on that building was carefully designed for mass production, yet each strike of the coin carries tiny differences that collectors sometimes notice. Even in heavily worn condition, these details still exist, just faded by time and circulation. Now let's talk about reality in the coin market. Most 1995 Jefferson nickels in worn condition are only worth face value. 5 cents. That's it in everyday circulation. However, coins in higher mint condition, those that were never heavily circulated, can sometimes attract collectors when building full Jefferson nickel sets. In those cases, grading and preservation matter more than the year itself. This is the key point most beginners miss. A coin does not become valuable just because someone on the internet says it is rare. It becomes valuable when collectors agree, grading services confirm condition, and demand exists in auctions. That is how real numismatics works. And that is why experienced collectors always examine coins carefully before making assumptions. They don't rely on hype. They rely on detail. Now imagine this coin again. A simple 1995 nickel. Worn. Scratched. Dull from decades of circulation. Most people would never think twice about it. But a collector sees something different. They see history. They see production. They see variation. They see potential collections being completed one coin at a time. And that mindset is what separates a casual spender from a true coin enthusiast. Because in the world of coins, awareness is everything. Not every coin will be rare. Not every coin will be valuable. But every coin has a story. And sometimes, understanding that story is more valuable than the coin itself. So next time you see a Jefferson nickel from 1995, don't just toss it aside without a glance. Look at it. Study it. Notice its details. Because coins like these remind us of something simple but powerful. Value is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, ordinary, and hiding in plain sight. And the more you learn to see that difference, the more you understand the real world of coins beyond the surface.